A very good afternoon to you, our viewers. Welcome to this edition of the People's Verdict. I must make mention that this is the first episode in line, and we are having on set for the first time, actually, the National Action for Quality Education in Zambia, discussing various issues pertaining to the education sector. And today our focus is on Sustainable Development Goal number 4. Where are we as a country? Let's just take a short breather. When we return, I will be introducing our guests on set, and we delve into the conversation. You two out there can be able to call in and send in those text messages and have a conversation with the people on set. Good afternoon.
We still need more players, yes, because we need to balance the team. We need to have maybe on one position 3 or 4 players.
The third Cabinet Stars football trial is on. This time, Cabinet Stars are looking for young, talented and skilled soccer players between the age of 18 and 20 years old. Start your lucrative football career in Europe this July. If you know you are one of Zambia's best gifted soccer players, don't waste your time. On Sunday, the 13th March 2022, there will be trials for professional soccer stars. Venue, Kablonga Boys Secondary School grounds. Time, registration 13 hours. Kick-off 14 hours. 100 kwacha non-refundable shall be paid, and your birth records must be produced upon registration. Cabinet Stars, setting football standards for international market.
Welcome back. In case you are just joining us, we are getting started with the first edition of the People's Verdict. And on set, like I mentioned earlier, before we took that short break, is that we have the National Action for Quality Education in Zambia, and we are discussing Zambia Sustainable Development Goal number 4, and where are we? On set, we have the National Action for Quality Education in Zambia Executive Director, Mr. Aaron Chansa, and also Precious Kalimukwa, District Coordinator for Chilanga. And gentlemen and ladies, welcome to this interview.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for having us.
All right, so before we delve into the conversation, let's just get to a brief background of what this project and this program specifically is about. So in Zambia, there's been a continuous decline of domestic funding in the education sector during the 5 years of implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. In 2020 and 2021, the Zambian government allocated 12.4% and 11% respectively to the education sector. Notably, this budgetary allocation is below the SADC protocol on education and a threat to meeting targets of Sustainable Development Goal number 4. In Zambia, at both primary and secondary level, there are more girls and boys dropping out of school due to socio-economic factors such as teen pregnancies, early marriage. The worst hit are the girls in rural areas and farming communities. Suffice to mention that barriers to access to quality, inclusive and equitable education by the girls and young women in Zambia, Zimbabwe and Malawi, of which this project that they will be talking about also covers these countries. This is the main reason why in 2021, the National Action for Quality Education, a case students and youths working on reproductive health action team in Zimbabwe, Girls Activist Youth Organization of Malawi, and Farming Communities Trust of Zimbabwe formed a Girls Education Advocacy in Region Alliance. To demonstrate regional unity, the 4 alliance partners will be implementing a Girls Education Advocacy in the Region project, gears for the next 3 years. Mr. Chancellor.
Yes.
With that background, what is this project all about?
Introduced, we are coming in under the banner of an alliance, as you said, Girls Education Advocacy in the region. In this alliance, we have SEWAT, based in Zimbabwe. We have Facet, based in Zimbabwe. We have GAYO, which is Girls Activist Youth Organization, and also NAKES, coming together, as you said, to show the unity that exists among the 3 countries, so that we speak with one voice. over the lack of access to education, not just education, but quality education by our girls, especially those that are coming from rural areas and farming communities. And just a small correction, this alliance was formed in 2020 to begin to advocate for more access to education, to hold our government accountable over a number of international treaties or international educational treaties that our government has signed to adhere to implement. And yesterday, this project was launched in Zambia. We want to thank our government through the Ministry of Education. The Permanent Secretary actually launched this project. We also want to thank the media in Zambia and also a lot of civil society organizations that came through yesterday. We had UNESCO, we had FAWEZA, we had ZANEC, we had the ZTF, Chalk Breakers, RUFOS, and so many other NGOs that came. And one exciting thing that I must make mention is that this is about our girl child. And today we are talking about Women's Day.
Exactly, you didn't even wish me happy.
Yes, yes, and I was coming to that, Sharon, that our women before and after independence, even today, remain one of the biggest ingredients to national unity, to national development, to poverty reduction. And today, as we celebrate our women, as NACES and also as GEA Alliance, and financial support from the Global Partnership for Education, we want to pay glowing tribute to our women for what they are and what they continue to be in our lives as Zambia, in Malawi, and also Zimbabwe. We wish them well, and we want to say that at the end of this project, we want to see our girls, we want to see our young women, especially those that are in rural areas, to have more access to education.
Precious, one of the objectives of this program is to sensitize people on Sustainable Development Goal number 4. For somebody out there who has no idea about this, what does it say? Why Sustainable Development Goal number 4?
Okay, basically, Sustainable Development Goal number 4, it's basically talking about quality education. So like the main, that's why even this project for GEA comes in. Our main interest is mostly on the girl child. You know, when it's not just a matter of having quantity, but we are interested in the quality education, because the goal number 4 itself is talking about the quality education, and there's a girl child in that quality education. We want our women out there also to be educated.
All right, Mr. Chancellor, we kickstart the questions. Now that we've set the ball rolling, we've warmed the chairs, and obviously people out there are geared to listen and to watch and of course participate. Like I mentioned earlier, you can call in and also send in those text messages and ask the people on set the questions that you want to ask with regards to the education sector, especially when it comes to quality and a girl child. Now, Mr. Chancellor, GEA Alliance, why have it now? Is it because of the, I know that the project was launched yesterday.
Yes.
Is it because of the free education policy?
the famous free education policy. Precious, oh sorry, Sharon. You know, Precious, Sharon, yeah, they seem to be the same. If you read the history of the 3 countries before our independence, you realize that in 1953, we had what was called Central African Federation, where Zimbabwe, then Southern Rhodesia, Zambia, then Northern Rhodesia, and Nyasaland, today we call it Malawi, were actually one territory. And in 1963, that federation was broken, and in 1964, Zambia became independent. I think Malawi in the same year. Zimbabwe became independent in 1980. But if you look at the socio-economic and political demographies, you find that the three countries actually are almost the same. The late President Mugabe used to call Zambia and Malawi as Siamese twins. When we sat down as the four organizations before 2020, when you look at the issues of early pregnancies, these issues are common in Zambia, are common in Malawi, are common in Zimbabwe. Look at the issues of early marriages. You find that, of course, Zambia is among the highest at 42% in the world. Malawi is also hard hit. Zimbabwe is suffering from the same. When you look at the issues of quantity education, she talked about SDG number 4. It's talking about quality education. When you go to Zimbabwe, you come to Zambia, you go to Malawi, the effects of lack of funding to education are the same. Look at the figures that you mentioned. When you go to Zimbabwe, they are receiving about 13% funding. You talk about Zambia today, we are about 10.4%, and these have effects. So we thought that to show that regional unity, to make our voice much more stronger, can we come up with an alliance? And that's why we called it Girls Education Advocacy in the region. Now, when you look at the bottlenecks to education that I mentioned, you discover that most of the girls that drop out of school, most of the girls that fail to afford education are coming out of rural areas. In Zimbabwe, there are communities that were once farming communities. Even today, the challenges of access to education are still there. In Zambia today and Malawi, we have girls that are walking distances from their homes to the next school. In Zambia, there is a concept of weekly boarding, where our girls are actually getting exposed to a lot of things as they attend that school. And this alliance was crafted around unity, around influencing our governments, so that together as a region, we begin to see our girls, those that are found in the rural areas, access not just education, as I keep mentioning, but quality education. So, in Zambia, we have free education. In Malawi, they don't have. In Zimbabwe, they don't have. But the challenges are still the same. Even today, as we have free education in Zambia, some of our girls are not still accessing education because of the distances. Some of our girls are dropping out of school because of early pregnancies. Some of our girls are dropping. If you check the statistical bulletin of the Ministry of Education, we are seeing more than 15,000 of our girls getting pregnant. We have the highest in Africa of early marriages in our country. And these challenges are the same in Malawi and Zimbabwe. And we have come now to unite civil society organizations, the media, and involving the government itself to make sure that by the end of this project, we must look back and smile that this project was actually birthed.
Precious, being a woman, you're a girl child. I always think a woman is a girl child all the time. How is it possible that we are going to manage to attain Sustainable Development Goal number 4 and Agenda 2063 with all these challenges in place?
Okay. To start with, we are thankful for our government for the free education. But just like as Edie has put it, you'd find that there are still other challenges that a girl child faces, more especially like when it comes to distance itself. Maybe a boy child can manage to walk that long distance, but for a girl child, you find that it's difficult. So as a result, you find that at times, even when they are put in school, there is that absenteeism from the girl child. And apart from that, there are a lot of other factors. You find that the girl child, at times you go home, you have to cook, then there's that time of the month. Then you find that maybe at times you don't even, you're coming from a poor family, you're coming from a poor background where you're not able to have access to sanitary pads and all those things. So you find that there are a lot of challenges that are there, but if we marry the two, like the 2060 together with the SDG number 4, this is where it's talking about quality education. Then as well as, because if you look at the SDG, it's talking about, it's an issue where it's talking about zero hunger. where they are dealing with the hunger, because if you look at hunger itself, if you look at poverty itself, it's one of the contributing factors which is causing also a girl child not to be in school, which is causing at times a girl child to be put in those early marriages. I remember like yesterday he mentioned that we are launching, and from the launch there was an interaction that we had, and from that interaction that we had, there's someone that came up with who was saying that, you know, there are just areas nearby here, just within Lusaka, these surrounding areas like Chibombo, Chisamba, where girls are introduced to start working maybe in those Chinese shops as early as 13 years. Others, you'd find that they even engage in prostitution. What is causing all that? You'd find that it's because of poverty itself. So if those things as the poverty are dealt with, and if those things like quality education itself is dealt with, I think it will be easy to access that or to attain that goal. But at the moment, from the look of the way things are moving with our new Dawn government, at least it's giving me a bit of hope. Because already we've seen that there's that free education, but we're just also appealing to the government to also help in terms of putting up boarding schools to help that girl child, for them not to be moving those long distances which they've been moving, so that at least they can have access to nearby education, and even to put up more schools in rural areas more especially, because the girl child in rural areas is the one that is very vulnerable, apart from us that are in urban areas. Because apart from that, you find that there's also even the culture aspect of it. The girl child is very vulnerable in terms of culture aspects. You find that they're introduced to these cultures that at times they're not even meant, which does torment their minds because it's at an early age. Like, for example, I'll talk of this from the opposite. Me, I'm from the West, so I'm talking of this from the opposite, which is the West. You know, there are those cultures where they put a girl, then they come out, and when they are in that house, Ichisungu, they introduce them to early marriages, so I would say, because whatever they'll be teaching, whatever they'll teach them there, it's everything that has to do with marriage. It's as if they're introducing a mature person that is going into marriage. But this is just a 10-year-old with that innocent and babyish mind who doesn't even understand anything. So you find that as a result, when they come out of that, they want to practice what they were learning in those houses. As a result, you'd find that that girl child ends up dropping out of school. But I'm also thankful, apart from that, there's also this other aspect of the re-entry policy. I think that one is also helping us in terms of a girl child. You'd find that the time they were introducing it, maybe in some schools there were just maybe about 2-3 girls that were coming back. But today, if you are to check the statistics, you find that there are a lot of girls that are coming back into schools. And others, they even openly, they will tell you, okay, I made a mistake, I fell pregnant, but I still want to continue with my education. And they move on. It's not a situation like the way it was in the past, where when you fell pregnant, then it means that that's the end of school for you. If you are dreaming of becoming a doctor, then it means you'll never be that anymore. But at least with the re-entry policy, it's helping out also even in the issue of the girl child itself. So we are slowly, it's a snail pace, but I'm sure we'll be there. Even with these advocates that we've started.
It's not a one-day thing.
Yeah.
But anyways, to you, our viewers, you are watching a program that is brought to you by the National Action for Quality Education and its cooperating partners. And our focus this afternoon is Zambia on Sustainable Development Goal number 4. And the question is, where are we? You two out there can call in and send in those text messages. We'll be able to read them and ask the questions that you feel are really, really pertinent to you, to the people that we have here on set. Now, Mr. Chanza, the target number 4, SDG number 4, has got its own targets.
Yes.
What are those targets, and why should we focus on them? How can countries be held accountable with regards to making sure that they follow through this 4th target?
Thank you so much, Sharon, for that very important question. And I want to appeal to our viewers to actually pay attention to this, because it means a lot for our country. And before I answer your question, let me just give a small background to the SDGs. In 2000, there was a global consensus that there was a lot of illiteracy. A lot of young people, especially in the third world, were not attending a school. And we saw the whole world coming together under the umbrella of the UN and agreed on what were called sustainable Millennium Development Goals. And under those goals, we saw the demand for access to basic education. In Zambia, this was actually domesticated in 2002, where we had the MMD government declaring free education from grade 1 up to grade 7. And even then, if I remember very well, we saw a lot of people who could not afford education go to school. And these MDGs came to an end in 2015. Again, the UN mobilized countries and came up with what were called Sustainable Development Goals. The idea was, after 15 years, that is from 2015 up to 2030, certain things were supposed to be or are supposed to be met by all UN member countries. Zambia is a member of the UN. Now, if you talk about Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which is SDG number 4,
Yes.
it is talking about all countries in the world who are members of the UN to afford or to avail or to give free quality education to its citizens. Zambia agreed to that. Now, it did not just end there. The UN gave the targets for that SDG number 4, that goal number 4. There were targets, and these targets were 10. Prominent among those targets was that every citizen of the world should have access to quality early childhood education. Because according to the UN, early childhood education is extremely critical to the way you are going to perform in later years of your education. And that's why you've seen our government trying to establish ECE centers in primary schools. When I went to school myself, early childhood education was just for the rich. It was not in government schools but in private schools.
Did you attend it?
Not at all.
You started from grade 1.
I started from grade 1. Now we are seeing some schools having early childhood education, but just a drop. And the fear is that if we don't put in more effort, that target will not be met. We also have another target which talks about affording our young people primary education and also secondary education, which is not just free but qualitative. How qualitative is this free primary and secondary education? Also issues of skills. So there are these targets that must be made one by one for Zambia to attain or to fulfill the demands or the dictates of SDG number 4. And therefore, when we come with this project, we want to, first of all, tell our people to say there are these international treaties. Our country did very well to sign up to these, because these will help us to see whether we are attaining SDG number 4 or not. Yes.
Would you like to add something, Precious?
I think he has said most of the things that I wanted to say.
Girl child, this is a project. This is a project. You're supposed to have a mouthful.
You know what is important, again, Sharon,
Yes.
before she comes in, is for our people in Zambia, Malawi, and Zimbabwe to know about this thing. When a government builds a school, it's not a favor. When a school builds a boarding school near where the girls are, it's not that they must think that government has done them a favor. Government has an obligation.
Yes.
Government has a duty to provide free quality education, has agreed with the UN. So we want to use a lot more platforms. We want to use even local languages to let our people know that actually they have a right to demand for this ECE. They have a duty to demand for free quality primary education, so that at the end of the day, when we are going to have our young girls, especially in rural areas, who are going to be educated, who are going to be literate, then we will begin to deal with the issues of poverty. Look at what our president keeps saying, that education is the best equalizer. People have said that education is the key to success. Yes, somebody who was very, very poor one time would become rich, would sit among the kings because of education. So our plea is that this is not just a project for Nakes. It's a project for the parents. It's a project for our teachers. It's a project for the media. It's a project for the government itself, so that when we work together, when we see where the gaps are, when we look at those targets, we need to begin to demand for things that are not being done. We need to appreciate things that are being done. For example, she talked about free education. Our government has provided free education up to grade 12. Now, the duty now is this free education qualitative? What will come out of this free education? For example, if we have learners in rural areas being, let's say, 100 in one class. So this is a very, very important project, and I hope that our people in Zambia are going to embrace it. We speak the same language. We work with government. We work with everybody else, so that our people in rural areas can actually afford and access this quality education.
And just to add on that, not only education but equal also to the girl child.
Okay.
Because we've seen situations where the boy child is more privileged than the girl child. So this is, it's advocates for girl child. So this is where we want equal education to the girl child, where they have equal access also to education, just like the way the male child has, even the female child should have the same access to quality education. And not only from primary to secondary. If you look at that SDG, you see that it's talking about also even people having access to even as well as university.
Tertiary,
yes. And also having vocational trainings as well.
Okay.
So it doesn't just end from primary to secondary or ECE, but it goes all the way until you become a doctor, you become a professor, you become a teacher like myself.
Beautiful. Okay, so why is SDG 4 and Agenda 2063 important to the promotion of girl-child education?
When you look at these international protocols or treaties on education, they are trying to push governments to act decisively or to act affirmatively and make sure that all citizens of this world are accorded the chance to go to school. And when you look at those issues of providing free education, early childhood, tertiary, they are talking about finances. So these SDGs are very critical even to us as Zambians. They are very critical to Malawans. They are very critical to Zimbabweans, and hence this alliance. So SDG number 4 has all those targets. Obviously, they will need money. The Agenda 2063 of Africa, the Africa that we want, is also asking us to spend much more on education. Very, very important. Look at the SADC protocol on education. All these regional, continental, and global treaties or protocols on education are trying to emphasize the fact that education is a very, very important ingredient, not only to social and economic development, but also to personal development. So if our countries, if our governments are going to abide by what they have agreed through these protocols, SDG number 4 being central, then we are going to see much more funds being taken to education. We are going to see a lot more boarding schools, as she said, being taken to rural areas. We are going to see a lot of desks being bought for girl child education. We are going to see a lot more incentives being given to girls that for pregnant so they get back to school. We are going to see a lot more funding to education so that we have more teachers in rural areas. We are going to see a lot more models. You know, one of the things that we've discovered that pushes our girls away from school is that they don't have role models like you and ourselves. We have also seen that the sanitation aspect at schools in our rural areas also pushes our girls away from school. So when we strictly abide by those provisions in the SDG number 4, we are likely to see Zambia, Malawi and Zimbabwe spending above 20% of total national budgets. We're going to see a lot more countries actually joining Zambia in declaring free education from 1 up to grade 12 years. So these are very, very important documents, and our people are advised to check through these. They can actually Google SDG number 4. They can actually Google Agenda 2063. They can actually Google SADC protocol on education, so that they clearly understand what we are talking about. They read and join us in advocating for more education for our girl child.
Quality education for a girl child is key, especially those in rural areas,
yes,
of which this is what this project that you launched yesterday focuses on. So with that said, regarding SDG number 4, where are we as a country? Are we making progress, or are we going backwards? I know the free education policy is a step in the right direction,
yes,
but we're also talking about the issue of quality education to be key. We may have all these places, all these spaces in schools, but then what are we offering to our students? Where are we? SDG?
Yes, I know Precious is itching to come in, but I can't help it. But to say that as 3 countries,
yes,
we have made progress in certain areas.
On a scale of 10?
10, I think we are at maybe 45.
It's like 4.5.
4.5, 50%. Somewhere there, we have a lot more effort to put in. Remember, we are in 2020, 2022. We have 8 years to go before all the countries should be judged against those promises, against those targets. And it's very, very important to put this in context. When you look at those things that we mentioned, the issues of early childhood education, we have more than 8,000 primary schools in this country, and yet we have less than 2,500 ECE centers, which is already below 50%. So on that score, we are not doing very fine. Look at the teachers for ECE.
Yes.
Sometimes we call it preschool. Very few have been employed in Zambia. Very few have been employed in Malawi. Very few have been employed in Zimbabwe. On that score, we are not doing very fine. Look at free education. We were in Zimbabwe, I think last month. People are still paying fees in the government schools. Malawi, it is the same. We are still behind on that score. Look at the pregnancies, early pregnancies. All the 3 countries, we are still doing very badly. Look at I talked about the pregnancies.
Yes.
What about the early marriages? I think we are still doing very badly. Of course, in Zambia, we are making a lot of progress in terms of affording people free education, but the quality aspect will come in. Look at the aspect of vocational and technical training, the skills aspect.
Yeah.
Very few of our girls are trained in vocational skills. We need more of our girls to become engineers, to become carpenters, to become bricklayers, plumbers, so that they can create jobs, they can be independent. Look at the tertiary subsector. We saw, for example, in Zambia 2 years ago, one of our girls actually committing suicide because she could not be given a bursary at the University of Zambia. And just 2 months ago, we saw out of 10,000 of our students at UNZA, only 2,400 were given bursaries. So the spectrum looks bad. We are putting in some efforts, but we need to see much more efforts in order to say that we are doing very fine. So in terms of SDG, we are still a long way to go, and we hope that with this project, our government is going to do much more.
So the 45% is quite high, Mr. Chancellor. Maybe you're on 20%.
Yeah, maybe I was being charitable.
Yes,
I think I was being charitable, especially that we now have free education up to grade 12.
I thought you made it because of the free education.
Free education, yes, because you know it's quite huge. When you look at the allocation to that pronouncement policy, we have 2.1 billion kwacha to free education. We have about 1.7 billion kwacha for teacher recruitment, and on that score we have done well. Okay. Of course, we are yet to see these teachers being recruited. Yeah, we have only seen 324 million kwacha going to operations of schools. This is not the case with Zimbabwe. It's not the case with Malawi. And we hope that our colleagues in Malawi and Zimbabwe are going to follow suit. But generally speaking, even in Zambia, we still have a long way to go to be happy about all this.
So 20% is just fine. Precious, please.
Yeah, just like he has said, we are moving at outside a snail pace, slowly. But at least the good part is that we are trying. We are trying, unlike maybe our neighboring countries where they are still a bit behind. As at least we've seen the free education come into being, though we are still working on the issue of the quality itself, because it's not just a matter of having free education, yes, but how quality is that education that we're offering to our nation. So we are still looking into that aspect since it was just introduced this year. So I'm sure by the end of the year, obvious measures will be put up so that apart from the free education, but it will also be quality education. So we are getting there, but we are moving at a slow pace. Looking at the 8 years, you know, they might look as though there are many, but it's just a few years from now we'll be clocking those 8 years. And looking at the pace, how we are moving with things, I think we need to pull up our stockings and speed up things a bit. And I'm glad that with this this project that we are launching, it will help because we'll make a lot of noise out there. So until others, you know, I know there are people that usually would say that, no, there are some people are just good at talking, they don't want to act. Yes. But the issue is that, you know, we are gifted differently. Others are good, you talk. Then there are others that are good at implementing. When they hear the noise, they get what is, then they are forced to implement those. So through this advocacy, I believe that maybe there will be changes that we are going to see in our education sector.
And maybe, Shami, before you move on, I know you have you have very important questions. This project is also bringing on board government. Yeah. Yes, it is bringing on board the UN system, the media. It's about sitting together. Yeah. It's about saying, where have we gone wrong? Yes. What else can we do to make sure that we don't miss out on these SDGs? So government yesterday pronounced itself on this project. Government is very supportive. We appreciate this. And going forward, we're going to have a lot of meetings, a lot of engagements with government to see to it that where we're not doing fine, we do very fine together. And as we succeed, as she is prophesying, we succeed together. We don't want to fail together. We want to succeed together, so that in 2030, when Zambia will be appearing before the table of nations, we must have a good story to tell. When Malawi will be sitting before all of us, they'll have a good story to tell. When Zimbabwe will be sitting, I hope that in 2030, Zimbabwe will give free education to its citizens. Malawi will do the same. A lot of quality education, so that we don't paint a bad picture about Southern Africa. Southern Africa has a lot of resources, we have a lot of opportunities, we can do better together as stakeholders, and no wonder we are bringing on board all stakeholders as boundary partners, so that as we speak together, as we chat together, obviously we are going to see a lot more success.
So Zambia on Sustainable Development Goal number 4, where are we as a country? That's a topic for today. And just as a reminder, you too can call in and send in those text messages and ask the questions regarding the education sector and its quality provision, especially those in rural areas, because the topic of discussion is morally centered on the rural girl child. And in studio, we have the National Action for Quality Education representative, and you two out there once again can call in and send us those text messages. Now, Mr. Chanzain Precious here. Quality education is what you advocate for as an organization.
Yes.
And to talk about rural girls, you've always complained about the distances to the schools for a very long time.
Yes.
Nothing much has been attended towards this. And yesterday, I was privileged to attend your launch, where the Permanent Secretary for Ministry of Education was saying there is definitely something wrong that you are not doing. Were you able to recognize those wrong things that you are doing as advocates for quality education? And also, just to put on record, are you involving the traditional leaders who play a critical role with regards to what is happening in their chiefdoms, in their kingdoms, or in their localities to ensure that there's quality education? The girl child is kept in school and not married off.
I think the Permanent Secretary was spot on. We have done a lot of work of advocates. We have worked with some traditional leaders, but we want to engage more and also see to it that their influence is actually maximally used. I'm quickly mindful of our chief in the Eastern Province, Chief Mazimawe. I think you've seen him make waves.
Yes.
Yes.
And the Chief Chamuka.
Chief Chamuka, Chief Mumena. We want to have those as our champions, because when you are in Chief Mazimawe and you marry off your child at an early age, Chief Mazimawe will chase you away from his kingdom. That's what we want. We want to support as many of such traditional leaders as possible. You know, the traditional leaders are gatekeepers.
Yes.
in villages. We are going to engage them as champions. We also want to use local languages to talk to our parents. Some of our parents still think that a girl is for the kitchen. A girl is to be married off. And yesterday, during the launch, somebody from Zambia Teachers Forum brought in a very interesting perspective about having girls walk long distances. Here is what she said. She said that some of the parents actually decide to marry off their girl children instead of sending them to far schools, schools that are at far distances, because when they send their children to such schools, the fear is that that child will get pregnant. So instead of sending a child to danger, they would decide to marry off in a nice in quotations.
What they call formal.
In a formal way, yes. So that is a very valid point. And that's why at some point we said we should not allow a girl child to walk more than 5 kilometers. That becomes a danger. So we are going to go into communities. We are going to use all forms of media, social media. We'll go to radio, TV, like what we are doing today, to insist, sensitize our parents that education pays. Marriage can wait, education cannot wait. We are going to use influential people in this country to drive this point to our chiefs, to drive this point to our parents, and also the same girls themselves. We were also told yesterday that another thing that drives or that does not give our children, our girl children, motivation is that the same teachers who teach them in rural areas live just like them, the same environment.
Yeah.
You find that a teacher who is supposed to inspire the children lives in a grass-thatched house. Some of our teachers also stay in the classroom blocks. So we are going to engage the Ministry of Education and also Ministry of Finance. Remember, for the past 5 years, like in Zambia, we have seen decent houses being built for the police and also the army. We are hoping that the new government is also going to do the same for teachers, so that when a teacher tells a girl child to say, I was like you, I'm now a teacher, look at the house where I stay, that child is going to be inspired.
Precious.
Yeah, so just like he has said, we are going to engage more people that are on the grassroots themselves. Like he has talked about, maybe there will be the media that will be involved, there will be others. Then apart from that, we are also going to educate even the girl child themselves, because at times some of these causes is because at times you don't know who you are as a girl child. Yeah. So we are going to have those workshops where we'll be educating those girl childs, where at least they should know their rights, they should know their value as a female or as a girl child. What role are you playing in the society? How important are you? Because at times it's because of some of these behaviors, especially like when you go in rural areas, the only thing that they're looking forward to is you get married. If you're not married, or maybe you'll be busy with farming, but the most key thing that they look forward to as a girl child is just marriage and giving birth to children. You ask them, you find that this is a child who will be saying, I think school, it has failed, I'll just go and get married. And they have heard of even parents, for that matter. You find that this is a mother, because herself, maybe she has never been educated, she doesn't know the importance and the value of that education. You find this is a situation where you hear a parent or a mother saying that, this girl, you're just wasting time at school. After all, you get married, your husband will be looking after you.
Yes.
So why should you be wasting resources taking you to school? So we want to move away from that situation where the girl child is known to be an object, or just as a child manufacturing a machine.
Baby making.
Yes, a baby maker machine. We need to move from that concept, from that perspective, and start looking at a girl child as being someone that is even. I'm glad that our vice president is a female, and I'm soon praying that there will be a female president soon.
Yes, definitely.
That is my prayer.
That girl president, female president, will come from the rural community.
Yeah.
With the work that you are doing.
Yeah. So that at least they'll be able to say that, okay, this is where I'm coming from and this is where I am now. And also my appeal also to the female teachers or the female people out there in the society. Let's be role models to these learners, to these young girls. Let's be those role models where at least they'll be always be looking forward to say, okay, I also want to be like her. And like where you become like a commoner, like just like what you were saying, that maybe also the way you dress, you find that apart from being in a bad house, you find that even the dress code
is out of this world.
More especially us as teachers. You know, teachers were number one role models to these children.
And you know,
because apart from
sometimes.
Maybe,
I wanted to say something.
Yes, maybe
we go to the next question.
As the conversation becomes interesting, I know she wants one female to be our president. Yes. I think as men we are ready. We are ready to support females to be leaders, because I'm told that when you educate
a female,
you educate the whole family and the whole nation. Yes. Maybe my only appeal before we move on is to our female personalities, those who have made it in life. I think to join this project by being practical role models. Yes. We have a lot of Zambians, a lot of Malawans, a lot of Zimbabweans, females who have made it in life, who can go to rural areas as part of their responsibility to go and inspire these young girls in rural areas. Then also to the media. The media has been one of our greatest partners as we advocate for more education to girl children. We want the media also to profile these prominent females. She talked about the former vice president, Mama Inonge Wina. The current vice president is also female. The first finance minister, the first female finance minister, Madam Nawakwi. We have the Teaching Service Commission as a woman now, Drug Enforcement Commission as a woman. The Speaker is a woman, yes. I've never seen, and this is a challenge to you, the media, I've never seen the Speaker being profiled. I've never seen the Teaching Service Commission chairperson being profiled. So as a contribution to this crusade, the media must also help us to go out there, spot these prominent ladies, and let them even speak in local languages. Because you can't inspire somebody in a language that they don't understand. So all our women who are prominent can speak Bemba, can speak Lozi, Tonga, Nyanja, and so many other languages. in order to inspire that child in a rural place.
Challenge accepted, Mr. Chanza. So in case you are just joining us, we are in conversation with the National Action for Quality Education in Zambia, and our topic of discussion is Zambia on Sustainable Development Goal number 4. Where are we is the bigger question. You can send in those text messages as well as call in and ask those pertinent questions. Just now, we take a short breather. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation on the other side. Stay tuned.
I'm Deborah Lukalu, all the way from South Africa. You are watching Camnet channel, not just another channel. God bless you. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. You're watching The People's Verdict, first edition, and we're privileged to have in studio the National Action for Quality Education in Zambia Executive Director, Mr. Aaron Chanza, as well as his colleague, Precious Kalimungwa. I'm finding it really hard, but I hope I've done the correct thing.
Yeah, you've done justice.
But anyways, we are discussing Sustainable Development Goal number 4. Where are we as a country in attaining this development goal? Now, before we went on that short break, we have elaborately spoken more about the goal number 4.
Yes.
Who is supposed to be responsible for this?
Yes, and this is also a very, very important point in our discussion. I said that we have a tendency in Africa, in Southern Africa, and also Zambia in particular, where we see development from a personal perspective. When politicians pronounce themselves on development, we tend to see that as a personal favor to us. Mm-hmm. To the contrary, when you go to elections and you elect a set of individuals to govern you, you are telling them that we want more schools, we want cheaper life, we want more clinics, we want our girls to finish education. That's what you are saying. Mm-hmm. Our leaders govern this country on behalf of the state. The taxes that people pay are not personal. These are public resources, and from the president up to the district commissioner up to the teacher, they work in trust from the people. So when these treaties were signed, they were signed on behalf of the Zambian government. The undertaking, the promise was that any successive government, regardless of who is in State House, should be able to fulfill those promises. And when time comes to account, it is the executive that actually accounts for what the Zambia has achieved, because the executive hosts the head of state. the executive hosts the head of government, the commander-in-chief. So if we are not going to meet these objectives, these targets, it is the executive that is going to be answerable to the people. And that's why it's also very important that our people out there must begin to hold our government, regardless of who is in the State House. The people have the power to actually hold government officials to account. Social accountability is part of democracy. If people don't hold their leaders to account, then part of democracy is gone. So we are talking about 8 years to go. The people should be very, very much alert. You ask the question, where are we? The people must know where we are. The 10 targets must be listed. We mentioned some of them. The people themselves must judge. Are we affording all citizens free early child education? If the answer is yes, then the people must tick. Are we affording school-going children free and quality primary education? If the answer is yes or no, the people must tick. Are we having a lot of pregnancies in rural areas? If the answer is yes, the people must tick. So it is the government that will be answerable to the international community. That must be answerable to the people. Actually, before we go to the international community, all governments must be answerable to its own people, because it is the people with the power to choose who goes in and who goes out. So this is a very, very important question, and even our leaders at all levels must know that there are these targets. They must always be reminded that we have 8 years to go. They must always be reminded by the figures that we are mentioning. You know, it is globally accepted, agreed that figures or numbers don't lie. Yes. If we read the figures, 15,000, 18,000 is a number that must threaten, must shock, must provoke all of us to act. Why should we allow children and girls in rural areas to walk 20, 30 kilometers to the next school, when our children in towns are being driven to schools? Why should we allow girls in rural areas to actually be in weekly boarding, where they are all alone, nobody took after them? They are exposed to a lot of dangers when our children are sleeping in well-furnished houses. This question should trigger a lot of worry and action, not only in all of us, but government especially. So government has a responsibility to act and be accountable over these matters.
8 years to go, that's 2030.
Yes.
In an event we don't meet this target, what does it mean for that rural girl?
Actually, very soon, as part of this project, we are going to politely begin to tabulate these figures. As we are asking, where are we on this matter, where are we on this matter, and out of 10, we are going to make a score.
Okay.
This is very fair to do. Obviously, after 8 years from now, I hope that God will keep us very well. Our prayer is that we are going to score very highly. It would be very, very sad if after 8 years we will score below 50%, because that would mean doom to our girls. It would mean that a lot of our girls will still remain without school. A lot of our girls will be in early marriages, some of them very forced marriages. A lot of our girls will remain illiterate. Poverty levels among our girls and young women in rural areas will still remain very high. And mind you, Sharon and our viewers, this country is a young population. Most of the people in this country are girls and women, and there is no better method economically to use other than empowering those that are in the majority. Because if the women and the girls are empowered, who are in the majority, then this country will begin to say bye-bye to poverty.
I like the way you say doom. Precious, would you like to add to that doom?
Yeah, for sure. If by 2030 none of it is attained, that will be doom for our nation. So, and just to go back a bit from what you were saying, there's the government part, yes, that will be held accountable. But even us as citizens, it's high time that we take up that challenge. Let's study this and understand what it's all about. So that at least even as we are putting government to account, because at times we find that government is not held to account because there's no one that is following them up to ask them that, no, there's this that is supposed to be done, but what are you doing about this as government? So even us as citizens, let's take up that challenge. Let's understand what we are supposed to do, and let's make sure that we held that government to account, because it's us that are going to be asking them to, how far have you gone with this issue? There's this issue that you promised. How far have you gone with it? And I'm glad, like, from the way we've been moving, political. Okay, myself, I follow politics a lot. I've seen like the way things are coming up now. They're a bit different from the way they were in the past. You'd find that in the past, politicians would come, they promise you this and this and this. Once they come into power, there's no one that would even question them.
But there's hope now.
You promised this, but why are you not doing this? But this time, at least, I'm hearing people are voicing out.
Education,
they are talking. Yeah, they are talking. You promised us this, and how come we've not seen it yet? So as a result, we are putting our politicians on their toes so that at least they don't take people for granted. Otherwise, just as we have said, if we do not attend that, it will be doomed for our nation. And if, just like you were saying earlier, that if we educate a girl child, we educate the whole nation. So if that girl child is not educated, meaning that the whole nation will be in doom. It will be some of these problems that we are facing today. It's because of the lack of education of a girl child. The moment that girl child will be educated, you find that certain problems that we are facing today, or certain economical challenges that we're having today, we will not be facing them as nations, because of that education that will empower the girl child.
As we near the end of this interview, I know, Mr. Chancellor, you don't like it.
No.
Your facial expression says it all.
Yeah.
What must government do to ensure that we satisfy the needs of SDG 4?
Firstly, if you look at this girl here on the banner, I think the face tells a lot of stories. What we are talking about is not just something to play with. We are talking about the future of this country. We are talking about a critical mass of our people. A lot of women, as I said, have painfully broken through and made it in life. We can still make more heroines in this country, and this is an opportunity for our government, our president, to actually leave a legacy that there was a government that did not just pronounce free education, but delivered quality free education for its citizens, especially the girl child. We expect government to increase budgetary allocation to the education sector starting next year, for us to meet those targets, for us to be in tandem with the Agenda 2063, for us to be in good books with the protocol of SADC of 1997, we need to begin to spend at least at 20%. The current 10.4% is extremely very low. It's almost like it's almost half of what is expected. When we spend more money in education, we are not wasting that money. We are investing. My strong appeal is that we should never see expenditure on education as a waste, but as an investment. When we increase to 20%, we are going to see a lot more teachers recruited. We are going to see a lot more boarding schools taken to rural areas. We are going to see a lot more women who dropped out of school come back to school. We are going to see a lot of desks, a lot of schools being built. This is the Zambia that we want. This is the Vision 2030 that we want. And this project is going to monitor these steps. We want to have an honest conversation with government. We want the media to come. We want chiefs to come. We want all civil society organizations to come. We want our people to understand that this is critical for our country. This is critical for our continent. It's very, very important to Zimbabwe. It is important to Malawi. What is good for Malawi will be good for Zambia. What is good for Zambia will be good for Zimbabwe. And this is about the GEA Alliance. It's about regional unity, and we hope that this project will unite all of us and realize the dream of 2030.
Should I take that as your concluding remarks?
Not at all.
Patience, your concluding remarks. Let's start from you.
Okay. Yeah. Otherwise, then just as we are winding up or as we are concluding, the other thing maybe that I would also try to emphasize, also like in line with education, is on the skill part. You know, the way our education is, I think you've been hearing me saying that, okay, you go to school, you become a doctor, but there's more to education apart from that. There are issues like maybe farming.
Yes.
If you look at the farming that is done in Zambia, mostly it's just subsistence farming. It's not done at a commercial level. It's because there's no education. There are no people that have been trained in that area where that this is how you are, if you want to be a commercial farmer, this is what required of you to do. So as a result, you find that, I remember there's a time last year when there was even a shortage of things like onion. Just imagine the whole nation, we're running out of onion. Whilst we've got vast land, we've got vast water. There's a lot of resources out there. So you find that let our education also put a bit more emphasis on the skills, where this girl child goes into education, but they are not only trained or educated to be a doctors, but they are also trained to be how they can be farmers, how they can do these other skills. He talked about the engineering schools. You know, there are some of these courses that are so deemed to be for men. But it's high time that even us as girl child came up and took up the challenge. And that is also my appeal to the ladies out there, even as it is Women's Day today, happiest Women's Day. But take up that challenge. Take up that role, which has always been said that no, only a man can do this. It's high time, because even us, we've got the same 5 fingers, we've got the same legs, we've got voices, we've got brains. Actually, women are more sharper than even men. It's just that maybe the physique part, but our brains.
Smiling.
No.
So let's take up the challenge as ladies out there and do what we can do.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, now you're concluding.
Yeah, I think it's just to speak to our people that they must join in. This is a people's movement. The people must speak. The people must call for accountants, and I want to encourage them to visit our Facebook page and also our website, so that they can get in touch. They can also call us on 0979 55 2885 or 0979 55 28 85, so that they can get more about this project. They can get involved and see how best we develop this country together. Thank you so much.
All right, yesterday, the 7th of March 2021, National Action for Quality Education in Zambia and other cooperating partners launched a project they are calling GEA, and this is what they are trying to sensitize the public about, and calling on members of the public to come on board and help this agenda of trying to enhance quality education for the girl child, especially those in rural areas. And today our topic of discussion was Zambia on Sustainable Development Goal number 4. Where are we? And obviously it has been elaborately tackled by the two guests on set. And just now we go to we say bye. Actually, I'm thinking we're still in the interview. I think that's how great it was, and
yes,
that's how interesting the topic was. But anyways, we have come to the end of this interview. Join us again next week Tuesday at the same time as we continue with the conversation regarding the GEA project. My name is Sharon Kalimbola, and once again in studio I had Mr. Aaron Chansa from the National Action for Quality Education in Zambia, and Precious here on set. Good evening.